So Pokey26 here, and I am about to do a direct strike tier list for like the W3 Champions version. I don't actually remember which version it's on now. Maybe I should check that. I'll probably put it in the title later of the video. But yeah, first we're going to start with heroes. And I want to preface this by saying that there are a lot of situations where certain heroes and units, for that matter, raise up or down multiple tiers based on what you're facing or what your opponent has, what your opponent has, what your draft has, and so on. It's like it's hard to accurately put them, in the right spot for like all situations. But there are generally some heroes that are like always fairly decent to some extent. And I just got them in order with their races, I think, kinda. I guess I didn't really order this one much. Okay, so human heroes. I think Archmage is like an A tier. Now, as far as summon heroes go, Archmage is a little bit weaker. Like level 1 Water Lily is fairly decent, but like you don't care as much to scale it up further. But he does have, in return, he has a Blizzard. So you're able to have an AoE skill and a summon skill, which is pretty valuable. The only other heroes you really see that on is something like Impale plus Beetles on Criplord, or like Chain Lightning plus Wolves on Farseer. Maybe Pocket Factory plus Rockets on Tinker. All pretty strong heroes as well. Like in that sense, Archmage is pretty good. But I think he can only be A because Tornado is very, very situational. And Blizzard's a little unreliable and slow. Means he's not right clicking, means you can't get an orb on him properly. And Water Lily's a little bit worse. There's consideration for him to be B tier, but I think the fact that Archmage is very strong off the start, like when you're level 2, you have 2 very strong skills with Water Lily plus Blizzard. I think that's very relevant in Direct Strike because the game is a lot, in my opinion, about early momentum. You want to take control early, you want to take the tower early, and then usually the game just plays out until you win after doing so, if you're able to take the tower. So Archmage is good for that. Blood Mage. Blood Mage I also want to put it in A. Because I feel like I can't put him lower than Archmage. It's possible that they're both B or something, but Blood Mage does have a very strong AoE skill. Flame Strike does incredible damage. You will actually one-shot casters and stuff with Flame Strike if the Flame Strike goes on them. So, he has to be like A tier for his AoE. And then Phoenix is also a very strong ultimate because the Phoenix egg doesn't get targeted first at all. So there's always the chance that it lasts until the next wave shows up, which means you can have Phoenix going on multiple waves, and it's like AoE, huge damage, very relevant. I haven't experimented much with Siphon, but Siphon can be pretty good situationally, I believe, too. So I would give Blood Mage an A. Mountain King, oof. So the thing is, I think Mountain King's like a B. He can be incredibly strong, of course, but he is melee, and you can get countered by like Magic Immune or Banshees or ranged units that are split off to the side or air. Like he's not particularly good against any of those. So he's more like a B. But the thing is, on level 1, which is one of the most important things, like taking control early, he can be very powerful because Clap is insane. Like 50% attack reduction and move speed reduction, as well as good damage, makes Clap very valuable and is one of the strongest early game AoE skills against, masses of ghouls or footies or grunts or whatever. So I'll put him at a B. Because he, like I said, he can be very strong. He can also do a lot of damage with Bolt as well. But Bolt can be countered by Spell Shield. Clap can be countered by range or air or magic immune or anti-magic channel. And he's a meta hero, so like I think B is a worthwhile spot. Paladin, oof. Like I gotta actually think about this. Like maybe I'm supposed to have like this, like all these down or something. But I think Paladin's like an A as well. Would Paladin be the same tier? Yeah, I think Paladin's like the same tier as these. Paladin has the potential to be stronger. He provides a lot of value with being able to be your primary tank in the early game, which allows all your units to not take damage, right? So you're able to kill multiple of your opponent's units just by having your Paladin tank, and then he pops Divine Shield, and now your other stuff is tanking. So it allows you to essentially distribute the damage well so that you can win the fight just by how the damage is distributed. And that's very relevant. He also has very good skills with, an aura for armor in the late game is good. Holy Light is pretty valuable for just a 1-point skill even, because like the first point is already like 200 heal, I believe. Resurrect is very strong, especially if you have high value units. Like if you're resurrecting Tauren or A-bombs or something, pretty valuable. So he can be really strong. You'll definitely see him S tier situationally, but then he also struggles with AoE, right? Because he doesn't actually have AoE. He doesn't have summons. So there are cases where he's also weaker, which is why I have him like A tier, because obviously he's still strong. Demon Hunter. I mean, I feel like Demon Hunter has to be the same as Mountain King. They're pretty similar in that they can kind of crush certain early waves with their like just AoE being up there. Demon Hunter is a bit more one-dimensional, I would say, because he kind of just right clicks for the most part, and then has maybe Immolate if you choose Immolation. But he's definitely the type of hero that can easily swing a lane into your favor if you're against ghouls or footies or whatever, and your opponent does not have banshees to block the damage. And yeah, you just get some Khadgar gems on him, so he's tanky, and your opponent's only option is to do something like Orb of Venom to damage him, or maybe Orb of Corruption. But usually it's not enough. I mean, it depends. But yeah, I think he's definitely strong, but he does sometimes get owned. So I'll put him at like B tier, because he's also, like I said, one-dimensional. Keeper is like S tier. I'm always a little questionable on Keeper because he's also fairly one-dimensional. You generally like you don't get much value out of Thorns early. Entangle is also, in my opinion, a little questionable because you don't usually want to waste all your mana on it. So it's all down to treants. So you need the type of situation where you're able to get lots of treants off. But if your opponent somehow later has a counter to it, suddenly your keeper doesn't do much, right? He just kind of stands there with aura and then later has his tranquility ultimate. But usually he's one of the strongest heroes out of the gate. He can easily take towers. Tranquility is very strong late. And he's one of the few heroes that can just win you the game right away. So I have to put him at S. Priestess. I actually value Priestess pretty highly. Also, I should mention that I'm thinking of these mostly as a first hero, right? Maybe I should have said that at the start. These are generally like first hero picks that I'm talking about them, but sometimes overall as well. Obviously, overall, you just value aura heroes like TC and DK. I guess this list is more overall, but I will mostly talk about them as first picks, I think, besides TC and DK. Priestess, I really don't know how to judge Priestess. Like, part of me wants to put it at A, but I think it's more like a B. Because it does suffer from the fact that it just right clicks. And its damage isn't like that crazy. Like, Searing Arrow's good, but it's not like game over for your opponent or anything, you know? Like, if they have some sort of nuke on their hero, they're gonna be able to out damage anyway, so it's whatever. But an early level Starfall, if this is a first hero, can be very strong. And if it's not a first hero, getting True Shot can also be very strong because you usually have a lot of range, whether it be tanks, whether it be chimeras or frostworms or whatever, even your casters. So it's just definitely valuable, but something like a B. Warden, I have to put in S, but there are definitely situations where Warden will struggle early. Like if you're against Banshees, it's kind of awkward. You have to make sure you have like an AoE dispel or something. But the thing is, as the game goes on, Warden just gets stronger and stronger. And Warden's already not bad right away because it has an alright AoE spell as well as an escape with Blink that keeps the Warden alive so it can keep leveling. So this combined with units like Priest or statues or maybe some items like Sobi Mask, Ring of Regen, keeps Warden alive, healthy, and doing damage. And then late game, she can actually be an aura carrier. And because she stays alive all the time with Blink, you're able to provide the aura for your whole team as she just continues to stay alive into your allies' waves. And that makes her very strong because it's similar to some of the ranged heroes being able to stay alive. But the Warden's able to provide decent damage with decent ultimate, and yeah, I don't know. I think it's like an S. I wouldn't hate someone putting it like an A, but like an S. Alchemist. Alchemist is an interesting one. I also want to put this one at B. Because Acid Bomb right out the gate can be incredibly powerful, but sometimes Alchemist also just dies really quick. He's not exactly the most tanky because he doesn't have a lot of armor, right? And you know, he is on the front line. So if you have hunts, he's in the front. If you don't have enough melee or he just gets focused first by chance, he might just die as well. He doesn't have summons, so but he does have useful skills. Like Acid Bomb and Heal Wave both can be very powerful. So I'm like a B. Beastmaster. I think Beastmaster is like an A. I really cannot see putting him as an S. But situationally, he's definitely S tier. Because if you're against Banshees, let's say, right? Your summons just go. Honestly, I kind of want to put him at S. But yeah, against certain lineups like Banshees, which in my opinion are one of the most prevalent lineups, the summons just go unchecked and they just easily crush the early waves. Maybe I do actually put it in an S. This one's questionable as an S for sure. It's possible I'm supposed to like move all the tiers. Like maybe this is supposed to be like this, and then Beastmaster's like here. But yeah, the thing is, Stampede can win you the game because it's one of those skills that is every other wave skill because it has long cooldown, which also means it's very strong when it works. So that combined with the fact that he's one of the best at winning the lanes outright at the start, if you have a good matchup, I think has to put him at S tier. Now as a second or third hero, he's very bad, I would say. You don't really want him as a second or third hero. But as a first hero, you can outright win your lane and then later win the game with Stampede. So I'll put him at S. Dark Ranger as well. I think Dark Ranger has to also be S because it's also a hero that can just win the game. Dark Ranger is probably one of the heroes that can win the game the fastest with a ton of skellies being produced. But my personal experience with her is more like A tier. She's still good, but I feel like I always get screwed with what I'm facing. Yeah, that being said, definitely very strong. And life drain as well is the type of skill that can keep her alive into your ally waves showing up. So she's very good at stacking and she's very good at pushing and just ending the game. If you get an early level 6 because you've out leveled your opponents as well, that early level charm can also greatly turn things. Like if your opponent has one frostworm on the field, suddenly that's your frostworm, and stuff like that is, you know, crazy strong. So like an S. Firelord. Initially, I would have gave Firelord like a C. Actually, maybe it is like a C. I really want to rate Firelord higher, but I have not played with it enough to know. The thing is, lava spawns can be incredibly powerful early, but Firelord falls off the most of summon heroes. If you can choose a summon hero, generally you'd rather have any of the other summon heroes, I believe. Which makes me want to put it as C. I also don't know if Volcano is particularly great. Incinerate is also too similar to current Orb of Fire. Like you can just buy Orb of Fire for 150, or you can skill Incinerate, which is, yeah, it feels mediocre that that's how it works. But yeah, like you could say that for Dark Ranger and Orb of Darkness as well, but Orb of Darkness is over twice the cost of Orb of Fire, and only ever produces like level 1 skellies, whereas, you know, Dark Ranger's skellies continue to level up. Incinerate, I mean, I guess Incinerate levels up too, but it's like, it's just not as meaningful anyways, I would say. I'll put him at a C, but he can definitely be very strong early with pushes and be more like A or B tier situationally. Panda, I have an S. Like very, very late game, you know, maybe some of the other heroes are better, but if you're looking for just grabbing a random hero, like these are the type of heroes you want to get because they can just win you the game. Panda is really good AoE. Its ultimate keeps it alive for a long time. It just has decent stats, I believe, too. Pit Lord is oof. I don't even know if I would put anything in D tier. So maybe I should put Pit, or maybe I should move some of these to change that. But that Pit Lord to me is kind of D tier. He can be okay. Like Cleave can be insane, but there's too often where he just gets owned. You know, like where he either just doesn't level or where the cleave doesn't come into effect or whatever. I don't know. Naga, I think C tier just because it's a ranged hero. Actually, no, honestly, I think Naga's like D tier. Like the AoE is only on 3 units. Frost Arrow only matters if you're against a melee hero, typically. Mana Shield doesn't really matter. And Tornado is mediocre. So maybe Naga is who I would rate as the lowest currently. I think Naga is pretty bad. Tinker is like A tier. There are situations where Tinker's falls off, but generally he's pretty good. Like Cluster Rockets can crush, and Pocket Factory is one of the best skills on level 1. There's a reason why it has very high cooldown and so on, and you usually only get 1 factory off at the start. It's because if you got 2 factories, you would just crush the next wave too. So I have to put him at like A tier because he's very good at like taking control early, and then late game he can still crush with cluster rockets. Blade Master, I'll put same tier as like DH and MK for melee heroes. He's definitely strong situationally. Mirror image can be pretty powerful because it's not really dispelled. And yeah, he can just do a lot of damage. But he lacks AoE until you have Blade Storm. He's a melee hero, so he doesn't stack as well as the ranged heroes. So I don't know, like a B tier is fine. Farseer probably has to be S. If I'm putting this many heroes in S tier, it probably means I need another tier here somewhere to like move some of them down. But I don't know. I think of these heroes as the type of heroes you want to grab every time if you see them generally. Farseer has, Farseer has a very strong AoE with Chain Lightning, has a decent summon early with Wolves, and also has the option of a single target nuke with Fireball if you cannot go Wolves, or don't want to because of whatever dispel they have. And then it has an ultimate that doesn't actually do anything in the fight, but does actually end the game, which is relevant because sometimes being able to push early with the Wolves and Chain, and then being able to end the game early with Earthquake is very good because you can punish people who go too many gold mines or too greedy, and you can just stay low gold mines yourself and just keep pushing. And if you get multiple earthquakes off, it can be like 1,000 damage each time on the fort, and the fort only has like 4k health. So if you get some damage naturally with units and then like 2 or 3 earthquakes, the fort just might be dead. So I think he's pretty relevant. S tier. Shadowhunter is the best ultimate in the game. S tier. not much else to say. Heal Wave is also very strong at stacking. Serpent Wards are like okay. I haven't really experimented with Hex much, but I'm sure it's okay as like a 1-point skill where you just leave it off until you need to Hex a hero, then you can turn it on and hope it Hexes it, I guess. TC. So I kind of want to rate TC and Death Knight both at A. They're both very strong, and their auras are one of the most important things you can have late game. But if you think about them overall, TC is still very strong early, like A tier, I would say. Maybe DK is more like B tier. But late game, like if you're talking about second or third hero, they're like S tier. You definitely want these if you can get them because they allow you to stack better, they allow you to end the game, they allow you to do fortress damage because you're able to get to the fortress before the enemy waves spawn. But maybe something like this because TC is still good early game as well, and DK is. I used to think he's like the worst, but now I'm like, he's not that bad even in the early game because his coil has like very low cooldown. You can just nuke down the enemy hero, force them to get spell shield or something, or Khadgar's gem. Like it's relevant, but only if you don't need like AoE or summons. Like if you're already winning the game, winning your lane. Like if you have, Banshees plus something and they have Shaman plus something, then DK might be pretty strong. But otherwise, situationally he might be really low or really high. I'll just put him in the middle. Cryptlord is S tier. Beetles are one of the best at winning the lane early. Similar to like Beastmaster summons, but you're going to get even more beetles. He's also one of the tankiest melee heroes. With Carapace, so yeah, even has viability with Impale, which is a big AoE stun. So S tier for sure. Dreadlord. Dreadlord is like similar to TC. I think Infernal is one of the strongest level 6 skills on level 6. But it starts to fall off if there's like, as more units get into play. It's still relevant, but the thing is, you only get Infernals like every other wave, or sometimes 2 out of 3 waves type of thing. But or 3 out of 4 waves, I should say. Like Infernal, Infernal, no Infernal, and then Infernal again. But he's definitely powerful. I wouldn't put him S tier though, because he is melee. Like the only S tier melees I would put are these ones, the ones with summons, and then Panda. I wonder if people would maybe Panda should even be A tier instead. I don't know. I put him S tier though because I feel like he's just the most viable. I just feel like he has good stats and stays alive the best of these melee heroes. And then his level 6 is also very relevant. And Breath of Fire is one of the better AoEs because it's quick cooldown with good damage. Lich. Lich is tough for me to judge. I guess Lich should be similar to Blood Mage at like A tier. AoE is really good. Death and Decay can be insane if it puts it in the right spot. But Ritual is a bit lacking, and Frost Armor is... The problem with Frost Armor is it does have a bit of a cast time to it, so you are missing out on right clicks when you're casting it, which makes it kind of like a break even in some sense. You're getting armor on one unit that's going to now take slightly less damage, but you're losing your own right clicks, so it's like, I don't know. The hero is definitely lacking skills beyond Nova and Death and Decay, but Nova is also one of the strongest skills against like ghouls and footies at the start of the game. So yeah, or just big clumps of units in general. I'll put him at like an A. I think this is like I think that's my hero tier list there. Now, obviously, like I said, late game Aura heroes go up, or heroes that can stay alive maybe. Some of these, like pretty much all the heroes can go up like 1 to 2 positions, or down 1 or 2 positions depending on the matchups and so on. This is kind of like what I have it as. Like when I'm looking for heroes, I'm definitely looking for this top line. But situationally, I might look for some of the ones in A. And then B is like a very situational. But there are cases where I would choose something in B over the stuff above it if it's just a really good matchup for like an Agi hero against what they have or whatever, or like MK against ghouls or footies, because MK can just clap that whole lineup down real quick. So yeah, I would say the first few tiers are definitely worth looking at. C and D tier, you generally never want to have though. Lava Spawn can still be good. Cleave can still be good. Naga is a ranged hero, which gives it some viability, but generally these 3 are the ones I would stay away from. B tier, situational, apart from Death Knight late game. And then S tier, fairly strong and safe overall. A tier is fairly solid, and situational will be S tier. Situational will be down a tier. Obviously, TC with Aura can be S. Yeah, that's that tier list. That's as best I can do it. I don't know. It's possible I should have like another level to make it so I don't have 8 heroes in S tier, but realistically, all of these heroes are very strong and can win the game in various ways. So that's how I have it rated.